Welcome back to part 2 of this very spooky episode. As before, I have Paul Meyd sitting with me, aka Dr. Stantz, and we are going to hop back into it. More spooky movies. Could not be held within one episode.
Indeed. Well, you said Meyd, and my last name is Meyd.
Man, I knew I was going to fuck that up.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm just talking.
I could stop it right here.
You could, but you know what? I have people in my life who I've known for years still call me Patrick, so I can give this one to you.
Okay, thank you. Really saved my ass from
I've known people,
this
I know
4 seconds that we've been recording where I could just turn it around. I could literally hit stop, but we're gonna keep rolling because we have more things to talk about. There is so much spooky. It could not be contained in one episode.
Not at all, because we're now talking about demons. Who in Street Fighter has a demon?
Some might say it's a raging demon.
One angry demon.
So Akuma has a raging demon. What is your favorite movie featuring the occult or demons?
Second favorite movie of all time. One of my favorite books, The Exorcist. I actually am sitting underneath an Exorcist poster right now. You can't see it. Wow. But yeah, it's on my wall. It's all framed and all nice and things. The Exorcist. I love it. It's I think it definitely blends horror and it's straight up horror elements with this drama, this domestic drama of like this, it's all about loss, and it's a mother losing her daughter. It's also and I would say like it's lost, but also the fight against losing. So it's like the mother fighting to against this force trying to take her daughter. She doesn't want to lose her daughter. Then it's also Damien Karras losing his faith. We see up front that we have the parallel of this woman losing her daughter and this priest losing his faith, and somehow the presence of this demon will bring all relevant parties together for one final zenith
confrontation
there's one giant confrontation where all those stories will be reconciled. She'll get her daughter back. He'll get his faith back, but at a supreme price.
Right.
The demon will get vengeance because the demon is only after Damien. I mean, is after Father Marin this entire time. The Lancaster Marin, the priest in the very, very beginning.
That's the gold that he wants. That's the goal.
Yeah. And then by manipulating all the chess pieces on the board, going from the prologue that starts in Iraq and then is going straight to Georgetown in Maryland, just outside of DC. It's like what a scene shift. But hey,
yeah,
you're a demon.
It's one of those things where like you forget that. Oh yeah, this movie opens up with like that statue of Pazuzu being like, oh yeah, this is that demon's story. This is what that demon wants.
Yeah, exactly. It's the demon's story. Like the demon is manipulating all these events, and it is the bringer, it is the destroyer of these lives, but it's also the one bringing all those lives together, strangely enough. And it's gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. It's shot. So it's directed by William Friedkin, who had the film that he had worked on previously is the French Connection, which he won Best Director and won Best Picture in 1971 at those Academy Awards. He started as a sort of documentary filmmaker. So a lot of the things that he was bringing to The Exorcist, a lot of the realness, a lot of those like quick cuts, and a lot of the closer cuts. Like I'm thinking specifically things like shots of the dresser and shots of the door when the door is slamming and cracking. Those are he's bringing his experience as a documentarian. So it just added this subtle realness to it, in just the way that it's shot. And I'm going to bookmark it because I do want to talk about. There's another very spooky little thing, or a real spooky thing with The Exorcist, and not like part of the. I'm not talking about like the legend. Was the cast actually haunted? Blah blah blah. There's an actual real documented spooky thing, but I'll let you have a word first.
What? Okay, now you got to know. Like, yeah, you've got me. I'm waiting in bated breath here. But so my answer to this was actually a movie that you don't know is about demons or the occult until much later. It is revealed later. But Event Horizon, Larry Fishburne, solid role. This movie got me in such a way that I love, well, at least growing up, I love sci-fi. And I was like, oh, here's a fun sci-fi movie, before I realized that it was basically Hellraiser in space. Because I thought about maybe answering Hellraiser to this, but I like Event Horizon better. No puzzle box here. We don't need no puzzle box where we're going.
Yeah, no Cenobites. Just I like to imagine Event Horizon is sort of like the first movie attempt at Doom, the video game Doom. You know what I mean? Like a little bit of that in there. It's like we're out in space and demons. What? No, aliens. You most assuredly meant to say aliens, right? It's like no, demons.
Portal to hell, as it turns out, or just a portal to somewhere else. Like, that's the part about this movie that I like that isn't answered, is just they have this ship, or they come across this derelict ship. It has an engine to it that they don't know how it works. And when that engine reveals itself to them, it's, this is just a gateway to another dimension or another world or another part of space. None of that is answered. It doesn't matter. But what you know on the other side of whatever is in that big black orb does not jive with humans. Not good for people. Not good for your health.
It doesn't sit well. Doesn't sit well in the tummy.
No. But Sam Neill is all about getting into that orb, and he, you know what? Again, not the second time we're going to talk about eye gouging. We're going to talk about people gouging their eyes. Again, seems to be pretty prevalent on our list here. But that scene where he just turns to Lawrence Fishburne, "We don't need eyes where we're going," is like burned into my memory. It's like, oh, that's a horrifying Sam Neill from the Jurassic Park. Because that's like, that was my only other Sam Neill moment up until I had seen this movie was, oh, he's the good guy. He is surely the good guy in this movie. That is not the case. Things get real horrifying real quick, and it's bad. But I like how this movie takes some parts of, like your world is bleeding over into this demon world. You don't know why it is, but you're going to see some really fucked up shit, and like some weird stuff happening in the medical room that you can't really explain, or why is there blood everywhere?
Right, which is a legitimate question anytime there's blood everywhere. Like, why? Why is this? Why
not
is this
really
here?
having a very good answer, or like, where is this blood coming from? Why is there so much
Also
blood?
a good question.
Yeah.
Where is this? Where is this? Why is this? How is this?
Yeah, all very good stuff. And to me, that cross-section of sci-fi and the occult is that's really what gets me. There are definitely objectively better occult. I think The Exorcist is a far better movie. It is objectively better. It's shot better. It's just all around a better story. But Lawrence Fishburne in space, dude.
Yeah, come on.
that to me,
Space demon.
The space demons gets me.
I will always be a sucker for space demons.
My honorable mention here is The Witch, or what I always call the VVitch.
The VVitch.
Fucking...
The double V-itch.
Fucking hipsters, am I right? Them and Chiverches, which I just can't get behind it. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's like S's that look like F's. It's that copper plate from our founding fathers. Fuck you, founding fathers.
Fucking hipster bullshit. I say that with a full man bun and beard. I get it, folks. Listen, I know where I'm coming from,
and I got the beard, shaved head, and black glasses, flannel. I'm there.
I know, but no, I like The Witch. It's a more recent film. It's from 2015.
Yeah, produced by
what was that?
A24 was the production house that put it out, and they're the same ones that did Hereditary this year, as well as The Green Room, starring Anton Yelchin.
I didn't love The Green Room.
I liked it. It was tense, but yeah, I didn't love it.
I thought it was too little. It was a little too like. I just hated everybody. I didn't think anyone in like the people you're supposed to feel empathy for. I hate them. Just let those kids die. Who cares? But The Witch I thought was good.
But The Witch is wonderful
because it has children. There's a goat. There's a goat.
There's a goat.
The actual Christian devil? I don't know. The puritanical Christian devil.
What's his name? The goat. Black Thomas? Black something?
Yes, I think it is Black Thomas. I think you're correct. That's a good memory.
But it's the goat is like, and it's one of those Black Phillip. There you go. It's again another one of those. Is this real? Is this not real? Kind of psychological horror moments as well. Is like, is the daughter just acting out on some subconscious impulses? Did she actually kill her baby brother, sister?
Are people coming to attack them because they've been ousted by their puritanical community?
Yeah, and this one doesn't really even answer. I know what the movie shows. I know what we see, but again, is this just her fantasy? Is this just cabin fever? Is it a hallucination? You know, I know what we see. We see her levitate, and we see the goat talk.
The other witches.
Yeah, but is it the devil, or is it just maybe her?
I hadn't thought about that take, because I had taken that scene literally which is also a pretty grotesque scene when you think about it. It uses nudity in a way that when you see the nudity, you go, oh, that's a bad nudity.
Yeah. It's like, oh, no. Put the clothes back on, please. Yeah,
it is the kind of gratuitous nudity where you're like, oh, this is actually like horrific nudity. This is I don't like seeing any of this. And you kind of like repulse from the screen because of what you're seeing. But done very well, I think.
Very well.
That whole, but I never thought of that as just she's just like probably fucking crazy. And maybe that's the case. I don't know.
But as far as like the visuals and where it goes, like I knew this movie. I like movies.
So well.
Oh, shot so well. I mean, two things about that. So first, an actual literal scene. Excuse me. That I love. The moment I knew is like, okay, I'm in this movie. I'm into it, because I love movies that pull the trigger. The movies that don't, that don't beat around the bush. They just go into it. And the moment that this movie just got into it was when you see the witch or whatever. This is very early in the movie, like the first 10 minutes or whatever, 5 minutes even. And she's bathing in the pulp of a baby, like of a newborn baby. And it's just like a mortar and pestle had just ground up baby into pulp and is slathering it on her body. And it's just like, it's so horrific. It's just gross.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where our story begins.
That's where the story begins. An interesting thing about the movie is you were saying how well it's shot.
It's pretty much is so good. The darks are dark. The lights are like all very natural and well lit.
And every single one is naturally lit except for one. If everything was authentic, it was lit by candlelight or moonlight or sunlight. That's it, except for one. And that's the scene at the fireplace where the mother's breast is being eaten by the crow. And that's because, so they used a flickering light bulb.
I actually stricken that shot from my mind.
It's shocking. This movie, you all have to see The Witch. It's shocking. It's good. It's slow. It's patient, but its patience pays off. I love you're navigating. It takes you by the hand and navigates you slowly through this pool of
paranoia.
Never
stops. It never stops moving you through it. It's like, okay, here's this horrifying thing, which we're gonna same pace right through it. Your eyes have to watch this. Next thing, like here we go.
Next thing you know,
but you want to watch it too because, like you said, it's so well lit. It's so gorgeous to look at. It is a feast on the eyes, like that breast is a feast for the crows.
But yeah, they had to use a light bulb in that scene too because a fire would scare the crow. So
okay,
that was the only time they cheated, and that was for a good reason.
Was that part of the oh fuck, what is the name of that I'm sorry. We should continue because you have other movies here. I was going to bring up the style of movie where there's those set limitations. You have to hire like non-actual actors. What the fuck am I thinking of?
Not verite. Not verite. But I know what you're talking about. It's like naturalistic type, but it's like
yeah.
I know.
Anyway, there's like a certain set of limitations, and through those limitations, you're supposed to have create like different art through it. But anyway, you had some other movies here listed, which I'm in agreement with.
Yeah, well, honorable mention the hell out of these. I love 80s, and Poltergeist and Evil Dead 2 were my honorable mentions, featuring demons or the occult. Poltergeist is a real interesting little dissection. It's like simultaneously this insane occult supernatural drama as well as being like this family film of sorts.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It toes the line very, very well. And I think that being because it was mostly ghost directed by Steven Spielberg, who also had a heavy hand in the story in the script as well. But,
yeah, it is a very Steven Spielberg movie. He's definitely softened up in his age. Like even the movies of like the last 5 or 10 years that have become like production works, but this was when he like gave a lot of fucks.
Yeah,
I want to say a lot of them. He had a lot of fucks to give. He might be all out of them now, but he had a lot to give at this time.
But it's funny because so for the longest time, so he was contractually obligated to not direct this movie because he was directing E.T. at the same time.
Right.
So directing credit went to Tobe Hooper, most famous for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
But the thing is, I can very much believe, and it's pretty much all been outed now that Steven Spielberg directed Poltergeist. People are in pretty much agreement to that. It's come out. And you can really believe it if you watch Tobe Hooper's next film, which was 1985's, or one of his next films, which is 1985's Life Force. Which had
he directed Life Force?
He directed Life Force. Put Life Force up against Poltergeist, and you can tell it's like, okay, Tobe Hooper didn't direct Poltergeist. Poltergeist is made with too much aplomb. If this is the next thing if this is where, if Poltergeist was supposedly his experience and he's bringing that to Life Force, no, he didn't direct Poltergeist.
Wow, I did not.
He cheated on the test.
Those together.
Yeah, I know.
But no, Poltergeist is a great movie.
It's great. And Evil Dead 2, again, that's the Evil Dead as a franchise, I have to say, is probably overall my favorite, or at least the most interesting franchises I think out there, because from where it starts to where it ends is such a ride. That first film
agree with you
being like
there in the same way that I think like it kind of goes the path of Alien in a couple of ways. Except it goes, instead of like the action direction, it goes towards the comedy end. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. So pitch me on why you like Evil Dead 2, because I actually don't like. I don't like the Evil Dead universe. I like Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Evil Dead 2.
I think Evil Dead 2
Am I dead
stands
inside?
out.
Do I know how to have fun? Am I a dullard?
Yeah, whatever. I'm sure someone out there, someone in the comment section is definitely going to say something to that effect. Probably a lot meaner than
Evil
dullard.
Dead's just the same movie. It's dumb.
But Evil Dead 2, I think Evil Dead 2 in the franchise, for me, why I like it, I'll name it the best, or my favorite, is that it's the nexus point for the entire franchise, where Evil Dead comes in as a straight up horror movie, borderline Exorcist ripoff, but still very different. Like I'm nobody. Okay, you comment section people, don't start saying that I called it an Exorcist ripoff, because I didn't. I'm saying, but in the perception of things, of like these, these high prosthetic demon
Right.
appearances and things like that. But they also follow zombie rules, where if you kill the head, you kill the demon. It's like, it's very strange. Then going into Evil Dead 2, it's got all that horror, but then is the first tip that Sam Raimi is out of his mind. That he is just like, he's just out of his mind, like weird dude, where it's like, he's just, I don't know at what point he decided, I'm going to be funny this time. I'm going to be funny about it.
Hey,
I don't know why.
Do you remember
I'm just going to
that
be funny.
first movie we shot? Okay.
The one that was super successful and was super good.
Yeah. What if we did that same movie, but with jokes?
And then it ends.
But not tip our hat that we know that they're jokes.
Yeah, not at all. It's like, let's just remake the movie, but also keep it a sequel. And let's end by throwing Ash back in time.
Yeah, through a time portal also. Yeah,
we got demons. Might as well throw time travel in there.
The fever pitch that movie gets to at the end. I can appreciate it. I just don't know if it's my jam.
If it's not for you, and that's fair. That's totally fine.
Because it is funny. It's a funny movie. It's the first. Is it the first chainsaw arm?
It's the first one. It's the one where he cuts off his arm, or his hand, and puts on the chainsaw. Yeah. and it's got the lines too. It's got that moment where, he called, the boomstick, and it's also got the groovy. It's got all. Oh, I love Evil Dead 2. It's just it's right in the, like, it's like Evil Dead is at the end of the 70s. It was released in 81, but it was pretty much shot in 79. So it still has that, like, sort of, I don't know, like, gore for gore's sake. We got to do something to show ourselves off. Whereas, like, in the mid 80s with Evil Dead 2, it's kind of like, okay, the 80s is happening. We just gotta do whatever we want. People are out there just snorting coke and betting, and placing money on stocks just willy nilly. Like, this is whatever. Just be funny.
That's fair. Because you think about Evil Dead, and it was like made on $0 basically. Yeah. And to come back, remake that movie, but then just be like, remake that movie, but with a lot of cocaine. Mm-hmm.
Which is funny, because Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead film, is sort of a remake of Sam Raimi's own film from 78. It was called, what was it called? It was like, no.
Within the Woods is a short.
There you go. Within the Woods, and that also starred
Bruce Campbell.
But as the antagonist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, so he used that, and he made this short film to get money, to secure money for Evil Dead, and then Evil Dead was more or less. Again, I know some more persnickety people are going to correct us and say, well, it wasn't a remake. I was like, okay, so let's clarify. He made the short film, and then there were things in the short film that he wanted to expand upon. So he expanded them in Evil Dead 1. And then Evil Dead, so
universe.
He expanded, and then and redid it at a feature length, enhanced. And then Evil Dead 2 came out, and it was a sequel, but it was also a remake. Ash didn't get very far. He didn't get very far out of the woods, and then he turned back around, and then boom, going through the same things, the same shit from the first movie again, just enhanced.
Yeah, because
and then Army of Darkness just happened.
Yeah, Army of Darkness.
And then Army of Darkness was like, here we are.
How do you feel about what is it? Ash versus
Evil Dead?
Yeah.
I just finished it. I love it.
Was
and
it
I think
fun?
it
sounded fun.
It was fun. And it took all the things. It was a more refined, it's a more self knowing, not self-aware, but it's more of like, it took all those, like, the amateur horror and the amateur comedy of the early Evil Dead, of Evil Dead 1 and 2, and it's finally, decades later, it knows what it wants to be. And I feel like it is the perfect rendition of what Sam Raimi wanted Evil Dead 2 to be. It's got all the humor. It is horror and it is comedy. And it's both of those things running parallel. It's not like comedy that's making fun of horror, and it's not horror that makes fun of comedy. It's like it's both those things.
Or too comedic to be horrific. Exactly.
Yeah. Like, and I love it. It's got like, yeah, I just do. There's like this great scene in season 2 where a deadite is like taking control of a mostly decomposed body on an autopsy table, and it pulls itself onto Ash's head like a hat, but through the butt. Through the butthole. So it pulls Ash's head through the butthole, and for nothing else, I would say watch it just to get to that part where he's like being pulled, and he's begging this reanimated corpse. He's yelling, "Not the butt, not the butt," and it's got that squitch sound, that
that sucking wet. God, we can move on now. Fucking Evil Dead.
Let's do it. Like
fucking Evil Dead, man.
I think is the sound of something coming out, and
what a joke.
Is the sound of something going in.
Oh, okay. There's a
Ick versus Thought.
Fair enough. I'll lend that one to you. What a joke. And speaking of jokes, so Dan Hibiki is a joke character.
My favorite character.
I do love Dan Hibiki. Actually, like I am a Dan apologist in Street Fighter 4. I think he's okay. I think he's okay.
I think he is very woefully low tier, probably the worst in the cast, but he's not unequipped.
No,
you know what I mean?
And if your opponent doesn't know what you're going to do to them or what he's capable of, if they don't know how to deal with light kick Dan kicks or EX Dan kicks on block, then that's on them.
That's on them.
I always go back to, we got Canada Cup coming up, but it was it
2014
or was it?
There was 2014 DreamHack.
Oh,
that Winter DreamHack, the one where Shaun. How do you say it?
No, it was I'm thinking Air versus Justin Wong.
Okay,
that's what I'm thinking of. It was actually Canada Cup. And Air versus Justin Wong. Justin Wong picks Dan. Actually streamed by Vesper Arcade back then, which in retrospect, I'm like, oh, that's where. All right, cool. I can see the through line of that guy's life. But anyway, Dan is a joke character, and sometimes horror movies are funny.
They are.
What's your favorite horror goof?
Well, again, I know people are going to be like, "Well, is this more of a comedy?" I'm going to stand by it, and I can say why.
If favorite movie of all time says your answer is not good, they're fucking wrong. Because whenever I saw your answer, I was mad I didn't think of it.
It's my name, Dr. Stantz, Ghostbusters, Dr. Ray Stantz, heart of the Ghostbusters.
Man, Ghostbusters is so good. Ghostbusters is such a good movie.
And of course, I would say it airs on. It's a comedy more than it's a horror film. It's more of a comedy film with horror elements. There's a horror jumping off point. In that it was
horror first all, moves the story.
Horror moves the story. If you stripped away the jokes, we have possession, and we have oppression and cohabitation, hauntings. We have a whole demon. We have a demon assault on New York. At some, toward the end,
large-scale demon infestation. It's
demon infestations, exactly. Like if you strip away the horror, the comedy, it's a horror film, and you can argue all you want, but you'd be wrong.
But it's such the part that I love about Ghostbusters is that it is I want to say it's basically like a masterclass script. The script is so good.
It's so good.
All of the characters play off each other well. The writing is genius. I don't know.
And I think the reason why is Dan Aykroyd. He wrote the first draft, and he also I know you can just say Dan Aykroyd, and you're like, okay, I think I know what he's going to get to.
Right, we're good. I know where this conversation's ending. I'm in the future drinking vodka, and we're here now
to this. Yeah, he's listening to this as it has been recorded years ago. Dan Aykroyd is a weird dude, and he has a family going from his generation, starting with him, 2 generations before him. His grandfather, Peter Aykroyd, held seances at their farmhouse in Ontario, Canada, or just outside of Ontario. So he actually comes from a long line of paranormal, of semi or quasi paranormal investigators. He himself does stuff like that. He's a member of the ASPR, which is the American Societal of Psychical Research,
right?
Based out of New York. And so he's a believer. He also,
thing is, I've known these facts, but I still can't help but laugh. It
tickles you.
It does.
It tickles
really
me.
Does.
So in his script, the first draft of Ghostbusters was somewhere around like, I want to say like 300 to 400 pages, maybe even more, maybe like 600 pages. It was like a phone book, because it's just dotted with these liner notes of like, so if I'm talking about this, like, proton stream, he would accompany it with like pages and pages, like,
here's the research of how the proton
here's the
pack
research
works.
Exactly, all that stuff. And it did. So coming from the paranormal end, he really believes there is sincerity there. And I feel like in writing, sincerity is something that people tend to miss in writing their screenplays or their plays or their teleplays or what have you. Now, in addition to that, he also genuinely loves cop history, like the history of like cops and like crime busters, people like that, as well as having an insane comedy background from some of the best, most famous comedy teachers in the world.
He grew his chops in Second City.
At Second City under Del Close, who is the third titan of improv comedy after Paul Sills and Viola Spolin. So basically, Dan Aykroyd, and what Ghostbusters is the marriage of Dan Aykroyd, his love of the paranormal, his love of cop history and also buddy cop movies, and just improv. Like, that's it. And it's this culmination of these like 3 roads colliding into this like beautiful orchestration of sincerity and love. It comes off as a love letter, because that's what it is. It's just Dan Aykroyd just espousing his love for all these things that don't go together. Why would cops, ghosts, and improv comedy ever be together elsewhere? But he makes it work because it's love, straightforward.
And the characters are so well developed. Bill Murray fucking slays it. I think that what really tied it up nicely, though, was probably Harold Ramis. I want to say he probably took one look at that script and was like, in its original form, and went, no.
He secularized it quite a bit.
We need to fix most all of this.
Yeah, a lot, because it was funny. The original,
not only does he play the tight man, the straight man on screen, he played the straight man in the writing room as well, of being like, this is garbage. Like, this
is Danny. You have it set in the future where these guys or ghosts are basically roaches, and this is just one group of exterminators in the future. I think set on the moon or something like that. It was like, we got to tone this back. We got to take this back a lot. Yeah, but still, like in that final, I mean, in the final writing credit is still Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. Although uncredited was Ivan Reitman, the director. Once he signed on, he was the one who said, "Let's set it in modern day New York." So that went to Ivan Reitman.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because then they could play these dual. Because again, in comedy,
that makes it.
The idea of truth in comedy. Truth is not necessarily realism, and people have to divorce the two words, the two definitions. Truth and realism are not necessarily the same thing. Truth in comedy just means you are playing the truth. You've set up the world. Now play it truthfully. Don't call it out. You don't need to call it out. We know it's ridiculous. We're here because it's ridiculous. Just play it straight. And they have 2 truths that they're playing. One, ghosts exist, period. They exist. and we found a way to deal with them. That's a truth. The other truth is we live in jaded, cynical New York City. And, and New York City is playing its truth the whole way through.
And they have to jump through all the red tape that they would have to jump through otherwise. It is them trying to get their business off the ground. Like,
exactly.
They're just running jobs.
Just like,
yeah.
Even that, just like, I love that smash cut, that next little, it's where they're on, Ray and Venkman are sitting, Stantz and Venkman are sitting on the steps of the college, and they've just been fired, and they're getting drunk. I know exactly what you're going to,
yes, I'm in a super agreement. I was going to bring this scene up.
And I love that moment where it's, Ray says, where are we going to get the money? And then Venkman says, I don't know. I just don't know. And then cut, they're coming out of the bank, and he goes, you're never going to regret this, Ray. And Ray says, my parents left me that house. I was born there. Like, it's like, come on, everybody's got 3 mortgages nowadays.
Yeah, come on,
and then he says, but at 19%, you didn't even bargain with the guy. Like, it's just like this. It's just very real. That's a come on. Now it's real estate comedy. Like, it knows it's deft in that it doesn't force the jokes, and it never bashes you over the head as an audience member. It never bashes you over the head and says, this is where you laugh now. We're going to stop and have an awkward moment so that you can think about it and laugh. It doesn't do that Seth MacFarlane bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It just plays the truth, and it scoops up the jokes along the way. Because if you're playing it truthful, it will be funny. The jokes will happen.
And yes, sir, this man has no dick.
Yes. Well, that's what I heard.
One of the best delivered lines, like in that whole movie. But no, Ghostbusters is thoroughly good. It's a very good answer. It made me jealous, even after I had my answer.
It's funny because it's like Dr. Stantz, and it's like, as a Ghostbusters fan, like we don't even think anymore because people just know me as Dr. Stantz, and they just forget that it's a Ghostbusters reference.
Yeah, that made as soon as I saw your answer, I was literally like, oh fuck, like a fucking course. That's the right answer. But my answer to this was Cabin in the Woods, which is a 2012 Joss Whedon film. And it is a Joss Whedon film, in that it takes the idea of what a horror film or what modern horror films had turned into, and then just says, well, what if making modern horror films is the horror? Like, from a introspective, like, what if all of this machine that we've built to make these jump scares and these like terrible, awful, like spun into the ground slashers or Hellraiser, like, what if we take all that and just say this machine that we've built to produce these movies is the real monster?
Yeah. And all the tropes and all the cliches are activated by a press of a button. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that so much. Where it's like,
those two like guys, like they're pulling in a 9 to 5, being like, "Oh, it looks like he's walking away. Better press this button to change the path." Like, watch him afterwards as he's sipping coffee.
Exactly. And I love the idea of giving a continuity to all the overlapping cliches. Like, that's just great. Like, it's because it's all by this singular hub being chosen by these, like you said, these like blue collar guys, like, or white collar guys. They have to, and they got to, like, they have a pool going, they're placing bets because they're just bored office workers. They're like any old, like, they're working at a mortgage company or something, doing like a lottery pool or something.
Yeah, it's like when they come around asking for like doing like the football charts or whatever, being like, yeah, what do you got on the next game? Like, they did that in my job, and that's the same kind of stuff you would see here in this 9 to 5 that they're pulling. But the idea is that they're murdering these teens. Like, also is the thing that you have to think about, or that all around the world, like, that's the other part that I love about this movie, is that it's not just this. It's that they also make reference to like international horror movies, and say like, oh well, like what are things like in Japan? Have they solved the problem? Have they?
And it's the chorus of school children singing, and the ghost just in the middle shrieking in pain. Like, that's just such a funny visual.
Yeah, it's so good. Because I don't know, something that I like about this movie too is that it doesn't necessarily make you aware of it immediately. There are parts of it where you go, okay, like I think I might know what this movie is. Like, there's a cabin in the woods, there's horror, there's these teens, they'll probably get murdered. And it kind of starts out that way. Even if you try and divorce that, well, what is the whole like conceit of this? If you try and forget about that, it's just like that family trying to kill these teens. But then things spin out of control once the plot doesn't go as planned. Right, like the last girl isn't the last girl, and that someone else had actually survived. Which that's not the script. We need to stick to the script. When they speak of the monster, to me, when they say like the whatever fucking monster or demon that requires this sacrifice, to me, when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's just like asshole horror fans who are just like, I want my horror movies to be the way that they are. It needs to be this way.
It's such a good meta film.
It's so good. But also at the same time to make fun of that, but also pay like true homage to all of those films.
You can tell. Like, it just loves every single creature that's in there. Like, to the point where you could just, it felt like they were just having so much fun.
Yes.
Like in the almost like writing, it'd be like, okay, and then there could be this Jason character, and there's definitely the Cenobite character, and then of course there's a creature from the Black Lagoon, merman. Like, of course there is.
Never the merman.
It's like we can throw anything at the wall.
It's never the merman.
I know. No, never the merman. And with a good looking merman too. I love the look of it's not as cute as the creature from the Black Lagoon. It's just this gross little thing.
Yeah, it's like a little, like, not quite alligator, not quite toad. It's like slimy. It's very strange.
Yeah, very much so.
But like good acting on everyone's parts, and it's funny when it needs to be funny. Like when he tries to make the jump, when that like beautiful blue-eyed dude, what's his face, from
Chris Hemsworth,
from Grey's Anatomy, like tries to make that jump and then lands in the wall.
That's
fucking
right.
Explodes.
That's right. I love that. God, that's so funny.
It's like, I'm gonna be the hero, and then he just explodes.
Which I love. Yeah, it's like they can subvert the horror tropes and then at the same time just lean into them. Perfectly.
It's so good, because that's the thing that would happen. Like the tough guy, the tough jock would do the heroic tough jock thing, and he might fail, but not as like spectacularly as it fails, or in the way that it fails in that moment of the movie. To me, it's like that perfect mix of, we know exactly what the fuck we're doing, but also we care so much about the thing we're making fun of. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's why it is my favorite joke horror movie.
I think it's a good choice. I love it.
So for this one, I also love your honorable mention. Holy shit. It's so good. But I'll name mine just briefly. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is also...
Good movie.
Yeah, it's just a good bit of like comedic irony of these two hillbillies just being as pleasant as possible, and then dealing with these like millennials, and it just going.
And it's like it's like the modern, like, redneck horror version of Shakespeare's Comedy of Errors.
Yes,
It's like
exactly.
They're trying to kill us. It's like no, they're trying to kill us. And then just like die. They're dying because of their own ineptitude. And it's hysterical. And then and Alan Tudyk is so funny. Mm-hmm. He is so funny, but I love him in
just
everything.
Good performances. The other thing that I have written down as my honorable mention is actually not a movie, but a series of shorts, which oh God, please, have you not seen Garth Marenghi's Darkplace? Oh my God, it is something that I still quote to this day. There's just so many good quotable lines. It's such a good, like, Stephen, you know how like it makes fun of like Stephen King era horror. It takes this Garth Marenghi person who's like an author, and they do it's like a retrospective on this show that they made, and it is dry British humor but put into the context of what if like all bad Stephen King horror like fucking loved itself. What if it just loved itself so much and was so earnest about it? And it is, it's so thick, it's so good, and just shot with the most. Actually, you know what? I wonder if the same director is not the same director as your honorable mention, which you can talk about while I look this up.
Yeah. I was just about to look it up myself, but that's fine. I'll talk while you look. What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, man, it's a very good, a very similar style of, I've lost my train of thought. Documentary. It's a mockumentary.
Yeah, mockumentary. Mockumentary, and then like, borderline found footage, but it's mockumentary. Yeah, Taika Waititi. Excuse me. Taika Waititi. I wanted to make sure I was pronouncing that right. Yeah, who directed Thor Ragnarok, and he was also and he's been instrumental with the Flight of the Conchords.
Boy,
and as well
very good.
Yeah, and it's and he also did Moana. But What We Do in the Shadows, yeah, it's this low budget New Zealand horror comedy where they do a similar thing with Cabin in the Woods you were talking about, except for all the different tropes of horror creatures they just narrow down on vampire. So you have you have your Bram Stoker's Dracula type vampire, then you have your Twilight type vampire, you have your Nosferatu type vampire.
Nosferatu is so good.
I love that one. I love that one so much, and I love when he's going through and he's opening the bedrooms of all the different and the coffins of all the different roommates. But it's this also this odd coupling comedy, this odd couple type comedy where they're just roommates. They're just dissimilar vampire types, but that makes them dissimilar roommates. I love when he opens up Jermaine Clement's room and he's playing the super sexy Bram Stoker's Dracula type vampire, and he opens up his bedroom first, and it's this orgy scene shot from the top, but you're looking into it horizontally, and it's just all these like silk sheets and these like nude women writhing, and he just looks up at the door and hisses and then closes it real fast. Then he opens it back up and he's just standing there in a robe. It's just, God, it's so funny. Or like when they have a new vampire and he eats one French fry, and they're like, no, don't. And he's like, why? He just eats one French fry, and then he's just hard cut, spitting like geyser of blood,
like fire hose levels of blood.
That's so good, so good. It's just
that is just
Peter.
Just another one. Don't bother.
He
lives in the basement.
It nails all the tropes. I love it.
Peter, time to eat, and they throw the chicken.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, just the delivery on like so many of the lines, like the jokes that they play, like, oh, do you like that spaghetti? Are you sure you don't like eating worms? And like the way that they deliver it is like like it's known that you're supposed to be like, oh, like these are just like hilariously sad people.
I love it. I know they're just bored. They're old. They're ancient. They're bored. And I love because that's a scene. Like every single one of those things can be taken from something like that scene. I mean, the way they set up the scene is their own because it's like a dinner table. Yeah. But like the whole like look at it, like, it's worms now. Like that's from Lost Boys, the Lost Boys, where he's like giving the Jason Patrick character Chinese food, and he makes him see the rice as maggots and makes him see the noodles as worms. So it's another one of those like, man, they know this genre. They know it in and out, and they clearly love it because they're having so much fun with it.
And I love the way that the werewolves are portrayed, and that they specifically like don't want to be werewolves. They're like, it's like their own AA meeting, but for werewolves. Yeah, it's just. It's so good.
It's so good. Everybody should see that. What We Do in the Shadows.
All right. Okay. And then the movie that we talked about earlier, we brought it up earlier. and we should talk about it now though. But okay. Shaun of the Dead was your honorable mention, and
Shaun
I think
of the Dead
fits here.
I think it fits here too, because I think it also does the thing I was saying earlier about Tucker and Dale, which is, it's both a horror film and a comedy. It's not like it's not a comedy making fun of horror movies. It's both of these things. Like they're living in this reality, and I think, it's just one of the sharpest.
There are still very human moments that you can go, oh, I'm actually horrified by this situation where, like, he has to kill his mom, right? And
right.
Go, like he's actually, like, you can feel that character dreading that moment, but also we're gonna have a laugh right up until that moment.
Exactly, like where he's crying because his best friend Ed is turning into a zombie. He's dying right in front of him. And, so they're just getting out their grievances and he's apologizing for all the thing. But they're still best friends. And Ed is still an atrociously immature person. So he farts, and it's like, he does the whole, like, I'm sorry too. It's like, for what?
And then,
sorry, Shaun.
And then even as a zombie, they maintain their friendship.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just that perfect, like it knows what tracks it's on and runs them parallel perfectly. Like they don't have to subvert either genre. The comedy doesn't have to subvert or undermine. Actually, I want to say undermine. The comedy doesn't undermine the horror, and the horror doesn't undermine the comedy. It's just well done.
And I think what people have to really look at specifically with Edgar Wright films is that the filmography, the way that things are shot, the cuts that happen are all in service of either the comedy or the horror. And sometimes both. They can use editing techniques that are funny. It doesn't just have to be the jokes that the people are telling or the witty writing. Even though the writing here is very good, it can just be a trick of editing that you go, oh, that was just really smart, funny shot. Like the composition of this, or the hard cut to something mundane was actually really good, or there was something in the background there. What was that? What's actually happening here? I love how the opening scene is basically like the apocalypse is happening. It is transpiring around him during his just very mundane commute to work. Yeah, it's very good.
I also and just like those horror films, it still makes a commentary. It's the whole becoming a zombie in our daily in the rat race. We become zombies in the rat race, that daily commute. It's just like we're not living our best lives, and we need something. We need, what do we need to shake ourselves up to live our best lives? It's great. It's
great movie. Great movie. And speaking of great movies, we have to talk about the next set of movies, which has my favorite movie of all time in it. This is my number one, actually.
Ooh.
But the conceit here is that 12 is like an alien science experiment.
Yeah, of course he is.
Sci-fi horror movies. What do you got?
Let
me ask you this. In terms of Street Fighter stuff, is there any other way to pull in sci-fi here? I was really grasping at straws because I wanted to bring in that sci-fi horror, but this was the best I have.
Maybe Seth in Street Fighter 4. I mean, he's like a science experiment.
Okay,
yeah, he toes the line. He's like a little. He's kind of like a Frankenstein. He's
one of your honorable mentions, maybe a little bit.
Oh, a little bit. Okay, I see what you're saying.
But okay. With that in mind, sci-fi horror. It's a genre. What do you got?
Well, my favorite. Oh, but it's funny because I love that you said your. Because I can. Okay, folks at home, I can see the list, so I know what Joe is talking about, and I love your favorite movie. I mean, your favorite movie. We'll just talk about it when we get there. But mine in the sci-fi horror genre is The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, not the 2011
not the
2011 one that totally breaks everything about what the thing should be.
Right, not that one. The one that was the remake. No, it was the prequel. But no, it was named The Thing. We kept the same title. No, I'm talking about The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
John Carpenter's The Thing. And it's fun because watching it now. So right now, I don't know. I maintain a political attention. I look at I like to know what's going on in the world, and
it is hard to avoid in the year of our Lord 2018.
2018, and it is hard to avoid, and especially like if you participate in social media, you'll see it, and moreover, you'll see this the social side of politics, where we are very much in like a paranoid state. If you go out there and then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, if I start interacting with these people, am I going to get doxxed? Am I going to get swatted? Like, am I going to go viral? Is somebody going to make me the poster child of their cause? Like, what? I mean, that's a little far, but that is part of the reality of what we live in. So the thing is this paranoid drama, this paranoia, this horror of paranoia, where it's like, who is it? What is it? Where is it? Who am I amongst? Am I amongst allies, or am I amongst something that wants to kill me?
Right. Because it's not revealed until much later in the film. It paces itself so slowly, even though the thing is making moves within the base that they're. Where is this? Antarctica.
Yeah.
Where they have their base. The dog arrives to their base, comes on to their base. I feel, as someone who empathizes with dogs, that whole dog scene is troublesome to me.
I know. I know.
It's a little bothersome, but also hella good effects.
Yeah.
That dog's head opens up like a flower blooming, and it is like, oh, okay, this is what this movie is about.
Yeah, the gore, or rather the body horror.
Yeah.
The body horror is exquisite. There's so many, like when you watch The Thing, if you're really watching with your eyes open and you're not playing on your phone or anything like that, it sticks with you. Oh, like just it sticks in your gut.
We should say, by the way, for all of these movies that we've mentioned that are on this list, like these are all movies that you should watch as a movie. Like don't be distracted with these. Like I don't think there's a movie listed here except for maybe one or two in honorable mentions that are just like feasts for the eyes. Like you watch it and it is 100% enjoyable. This is definitely one of those movies.
Absolutely. You will just never forget the time where a doctor throws his hands with a defibrillator through a guy's stomach because it opened up into a mouth and bit his arms off. Like that is, and then the head rips itself off the body, throws its tongue around a chair from like 5 feet away, and turns into a spider. Like this is the stuff that's in The Thing,
and these are practical effects. These are not CG animation. It's a whole bunch of tricks, either like through stop motion, through reverse cinematography. There's just so many tricks of cinema at play here that work so well.
Even just as simple as puppets.
Yes, there's really good puppet work here.
Yeah,
really good prosthetic work.
Just watch The Thing. Prosthetic work, yeah. And there's so much because it's so it's so paranoid. It's such a it's so wrapped and dripping with paranoia that when you go back, it doesn't give anything away overtly, and it never does. Never does, not even to the end. Yeah. So you have to watch. But once you know some of the tricks, you go back and watch, and the second time watching, you're like, oh my God, there's a moment. Like there's a part in the very beginning or toward the beginning where they have the dog, and if it's your first time watching, you don't know what's up with the dog. You don't know. So there's a scene, a very quiet scene, where the dog is just walking through the hallway, sniffing. It goes into a room that's open. You see the silhouette of a person by the lamplight, right? By the lamplight, but you don't know who it is. So from the very start, you never know who was the first infected. That's the kind of like tension that this movie is wrought with. And I love it. The Thing is just from start to finish. I could watch The Thing over and over and over.
No, it's really, it has one of probably the best jump scare in any movie.
Which one are you talking about?
The blood test.
Oh, the blood test. Yes.
In that, was specifically for that shot, is that they do that angle, and that's actually not Kurt Russell's hand. even the first time that they show where he dips the thing into the petri dish,
the hot copper wire.
Yeah, when he dips the hot copper wire to that would scare the thing that would make it move, I suppose. The first time he does it, the blood is just regular human blood, but the hand that is shown in that shot is not his hand. It's the hand that they use in the next shot where he goes to dip the wire in, but this time it's like a catapult.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh God, like who would have seen that coming? Like, and because it's not like a thing that jumps. Well, I keep saying the thing because it's not like a murderer that jumps out. It's not like a ghost behind that just appears. It is just a little flip of blood. It just goes flat.
Yep.
But like it is such a tense moment because so much of the tension has been built up in the movie to that scene of everybody is on fucking edge.
Yeah.
Like they are ready to listen. Something here has to be murdered, and I don't know who the fuck it is.
Right.
And also, like the other part about that is that, like, once they find out who is the thing, like, what the fuck was their plan?
Right. It's like, because then it reveals itself to them, and things go pretty bad.
Yeah, things do not go well for anyone in that room, pretty much.
Yeah, that moment on, it's like, ugh. But it's also really smart too, because when they discover it, there's more people to go. You know what I mean? So it's not like the process of elimination reveal.
Yeah, Kurt Russell is not the last person alive yet.
Right. It's like, it's just law of averages. We just know that, oh my God, we still have more people to go through, like this blood test, and we've confirmed that we killed a human who was not a thing. Mm-hmm. So it's just that that paranoia is so good. It's
also just shot so well. It's another one of those movies that's lit with good natural lighting in a lot of scenes. There's a lot of really good reds and blues in this movie.
Yeah, which is and the lighting is key, because Carpenter revealed like 2 decades later that there's a little trick of the light that indicates who is a thing and who's not.
Oh, really?
But that's actually something I actually don't want to say in the podcast.
Tell me afterwards, because I want to know.
Yeah,
this will be a secret for me to know and for you to find out.
Exactly, because that's one of those things that it's like, it's so good, it's so cool when you notice it, but you can only figure it out on a repeat viewing. But nobody did, so he just revealed it like 20 years later.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm down. Okay, so to end the conversation on the thing, at the very end, is that kerosene? Is that kerosene in the...
Yep.
Yeah. Is that what he's drinking in the end? Or is it alcohol?
I always thought it was alcohol. I don't know. I just don't want to think that I want to think, no. I don't know. You know what I'm getting at. Kurt Russell, he can't immolate himself because he's real. He's real.
All right, folks. Moving on. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But so moving on to what is my favorite movie of all time, but also favorite sci-fi horror movie, Alien. Mm-hmm. Just Alien, not Aliens.
Star Beast.
Aliens is a different movie from Alien.
It's an action.
Yeah, that's sci-fi. An action movie with like horror elements. It's very like Predator-like in that sense, which we can also talk about later. But Alien is where to start? I just love everything about the world of Alien, in that it takes place in the far-flung future, right? But everything is still like physical. There's a physicality to everything. They still need space truckers. Like,
that's what they are.
The movie opens on an impossibly huge spaceship, the Nostromo, and they're just truckers. And guess what? They act like truckers. And also, who cares about like their sexuality, their sexual orientation? Who cares about like
their gender?
They treat each other like future truckers, and it's like, oh man, like I care about these people. Like the scenes around the table in the commons room is like, oh, it's just these guys are doing goofs on each other. Like they have
smoking cigarettes.
They're smoking cigarettes. They're just truckers. But then things go awry, and people make some bad decisions, which may or may not be like. You later learn to be like, oh no, the company that they work for totally fucked them over. Because guess what? It's the future, and companies are still fucking people over. Like,
of course they are. They're companies, they're corporations.
Who actually cares about humanity? Fucking no one. The person who cares is the person who's like going to get paid at the end of the day. Oh, it's so good. But like, I guess like my whole history with this movie though is that my first introduction to this movie is actually, so Disney World used to have a ride called the Great Movie something.
The Great Movie Ride.
The Great Movie Ride.
Great Movie Ride. At Disney MGM
Studios. It's just that simple.
It's the Great Movie Ride. Yeah.
So the Great Movie Ride, before you get on the ride, they show... It's just a very simple, like, you go through and there's like scenes of movies, and the person who's driving you around, you're in this like big car with a bunch of people, and they act out scenes in front of you like that are planned, that are like not supposed, like look planned, and they interact with like the different people from the different movies, and it's like it's a fun adventure, right? But specifically before you get on the ride, when you're waiting in line, they show you the trailers. That to me was my first introduction to Alien, because I saw that trailer as a kid, and I was like, yo, this is, what's up with that white cat? What is that white cat scared of? What's going on? Why am I so tense watching a movie trailer?
Yeah.
Why am I so interested? Like, there was something of the way that they built it, and then that just spoke to what the movie actually is when you go to watch it, because you are also thinking, well, I don't know actually what the fuck's going on. You don't see the alien until you see like glimpses of it, because it's probably like if they showed you the whole alien, you'd probably go, oh, that looks real dumb. But the parts that they do show you of the alien, you go, oh, that's actually horrifying. You think when he's in the air ducts and the vents, and he turns around the flamethrower, and it's like, oh, that's the fucking alien. But it's just like a couple frames of going like, rah. Like, I'm pretty sure if you like pause it there, I haven't done this because I don't want to ruin it for myself, but I'm sure if you like pause it there, it's just like, oh, that's just like a rah. Like, like all I can think, it's probably very silly, but at the time you go, oh, that was horrifying, because I only saw that thing for just a second, and then like the people are in that room like, where is he? It's not Beep anymore. John, like, just yelling his name, and it's, oh man, just everyone is so fucking stressed out, wondering, like, because they don't know what the thing is either. They have no idea. They just know it moves. And they just know that something very bad happened at dinner a couple hours prior, and have no idea what that thing turned into, because it bursts out. This is where the chest burster comes from, and so they don't call it the xenomorph ever in this movie. And do they ever start calling it that in the Alien universe? Do you know?
To my knowledge, I can't pinpoint, at least from memory, where they actually use the word xenomorph, if ever. I just know the creature. I think they call it like the creature, the alien.
Yeah, just like so many organism. People over time just call it, oh, that's the xenomorph. But I think that's just like a general term for like like out of world morph. Fucking I don't know. Yeah. Regardless, I love this movie. It's beautiful. So good. I love the world. I love that video game that came out, the Alien Isolation. It's so good. Because they basically they recreate the things that you like, the world that you live in, to like care about the place that you are. Oh, it's super good.
And I love too, like when it came out, because like Star Wars came out 2 years prior, and so Star Wars sort of introduced the idea that the future or the sci-fi can sell, and and I'm saying the future, but it's not the future, but I meant like that sci-fi look, that futuristic look, doesn't have to be so sanitary. It can be dirty, it can be sandy, it can be just grimy and swampy. And I think the Alien and Ridley Scott just took that much further. That it's like, yeah, like you said, like they're truckers, so their vehicle, their cargo ship it's dripping, it's greasy, and it's grungy and slimy, and I love that. I love the look, like the hanging chains.
Yeah,
I'll always associate hanging chains with Alien. You know what I mean? Like the rustling of the chains, and just like that sound is so scary when it's like, it's like a little
just wet hanging chains.
Right. It's like that signal that it's like something just moved those chains. Like it's so quiet when it needs to be. And they sold it and executed it perfectly. Dan O'Bannon sold it as Jaws in space. That's how he pitched it. Because that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just a force of nature. It's a bug. It's an animal.
No, yeah, that's true. That's true. Because if you think about what they are fighting against in Jaws, that is not the shark. It's like he's fighting against the fucking mayor who's like, we gotta have summer. The kids love summer. Make my summer safe.
Yeah,
it's gonna bring in business. We're gonna lose so much business.
Right, and then it's like, give me permission to destroy the creature or whatever. Give me the information. And it's like, no, you're expendable. Says Weyland Yutani Corporation and Ian Holmes' android character.
Oh, yeah, that reveal that he's an android and that like milky blood is it's so good, because that's just another part that's just like, oh, that's disturbing. He's got plastic veins and it's milk.
Yeah,
what's up with that?
The thing about making the film that would have made me just like, I bet this was hell on set that one day, is when they're dissecting the face hugger, the innards were actually mostly organic. It was basically just like KY jelly and raw oysters. Can you imagine? And so all day under these hot lights, they're like pouring over these raw oysters and having to dissect it. Like, this animal was like, oh. And I think a few of them, like I think Veronica Cartwright, got sick to her stomach, and we're just like, this is gross.
I believe it. That's the kind of set that they were running. It has that kind of real physical sickness to it, and everything is just so off-putting and just makes you nervous the entire way through. It's just such a good nerve-wracking movie, in the same way that The Thing is very good and nerve-wracking and very tense.
Because it was similar with I was just about to say, with The Thing and Alien, it's not just the reveals of where it is, but it's the tension of where is it right now, because I can't see it. And it's not here.
Oh, yeah, it's so good.
So where is it not?
It's coming
not here.
For you. I see it on the map. I don't see it.
Right, and it's like, we know it's here. We know the thing just burned someone's clothes, so it was listening in on the plan about the blood. And the alien, it's like, it's just a dot on a radar.
Yeah. Ooh, and it's coming towards you. God, get out of there! Oh man, it's so good. And then there are other there's so much I want to talk about this movie. We have to move on, but I could talk about this movie forever, because the moments where the captain is up in the captain's chair talking to the mainframe computer, just asking it questions, and the computer's like, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I can't give you directions. Just bring it to us, basically. Just keep moving.
The Tom Skerritt character. Yeah, that's right.
It's so good.
It's wonderful.
All right, but that is my my horror film, my favorite sci-fi horror. My honorable mention here is Reanimator. I think it's a funny choice. I just think it's funny. It's
funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's just it's a fun little romp, and good music too.
Because the opening theme is basically the same as Psycho's opening theme.
Yeah, just a little jumpier. Has a little more bounce to it. Yeah,
and just made for the era. But it's good. It's fun. It's goofy. There's a scene where a decapitated head eats out a naked lady, and good on her. That's it doesn't do that though. It gets right up to that moment, and by the time you're like, okay, this has gone too far, it pulls back.
Yeah,
It shows you just enough of that, of being like, oh, by the way, we're gonna test that boundary, and then
it's just
I gotcha.
It's another one of those 80s, like 80s was a decade of excess.
Yeah, it's a farce too. So, it's a farce, basically, that happens to have horror elements. It's very good, but
I love it.
Your honorable mentions here?
Mine was, Predator, which I'll say really quickly. I mean, I know Predator is a horror movie. It's a monster movie, but it's only got a toe, maybe a whole foot, but it's got a toe in the horror genre. I would say mostly it's just
when I was a kid, I was horrified of that movie.
I mean, it is scary at times
because you can't see him.
Because you can't see him until certain
3
moments.
lights, and then you're dead.
And then, and as a kid, I always liked the Predator creature more than I liked the alien creature. But that's not where I stand right now. I think as a character, I do like the Predator as a creature better than Alien. I think I still hold that, but I don't think. I think I think that the Predator films never hit the highest highs of the Alien films. It never gets as good as Alien or Aliens. Never does. But
see, I like the Predator better than I like Aliens.
Okay.
That's where I'm going to combat you on that one. I like the Predator better than Aliens.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. I think I still, yeah. I mean, I hold my own standards still true. I think that Aliens overall hits me better.
That's fair. It's a very good movie.
But yeah, like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, they're like Predator. But Predator is still so good. And even Predator 2 has its moments. Mm-hmm. But I think as a franchise, I think it's better put together. Like between Predator, Predator 2, and Predators, the Predator was garbage, by the way.
We're not talking about that.
We're not talking about it.
Not on this show.
I think that at worst, it's only like it never hits the lowest low of the Alien franchise, being Alien 3, Alien Resurrection.
Aliens gets pretty low.
God, Alien. It gets pretty low, and Alien Covenant is not a poorly made movie, but it pissed me off. Alien Covenant does not count, cannot count. It cannot count. It doesn't fit.
Aliens versus Predator, man. The more they make them, we all lose. That's the saying for those movies, right?
Yeah, the more they make them, the more we lose. Yeah, I think that's about right.
I think that's what it says. But no, you're right. Aliens does have a very good Bill Paxton.
Has a very good Bill Paxton. Hell, even has a good Paul Reiser.
Yeah.
Has another shady government dupe. But yeah, I think honestly, on a good day, I think I can swap back. I think on a good day, I think Predator. Depending on my mood, I would rather see Predator than Aliens.
Okay.
But Alien is. I agree with you. I think Alien is the best in the franchise. And I think it doesn't get as much love as Aliens.
Right on.
But it does.
Right with
it
you
deserves
on that.
it. Deserves it.
Hell yeah.
And then the other mention that I had was The Fly. David Cronenberg's The Fly.
It is a Cronenberg movie.
Very Cronenberg.
These to me defined Cronenberg movies.
It is just a meaty, dripping, succulent, juicy Cronenberger right there. Just all those things. Very much in the 80s excess.
Yeah, that's true.
And just but then there's just these great lines too. I mean, Jeff Goldblum is
Goldblum is perfect in that movie.
He's so Goldbloomy,
super good. A good young Goldblum.
And there's this one line where he's just like he brings home a woman from a bar after he breaks that guy's arm in the arm wrestling,
which is one of the oh my god.
So that stuck with me as a kid. I always remember that.
There are things that haunt your dreams as adults. That's one of them. Like,
yeah, for a little bit, I had blocked out what movie it came from because I saw it when I was like 6 or something like that. And then as a teenager, I was like, oh yeah, this is that movie. I remember this scene. But then he says, so the girl, and then he just grabs that guy's girlfriend and then takes her by the hand out of the bar and takes her home. And she says, and she's like asking him all these questions. And she says, are you a bodybuilder or something? Like, how'd you do that? Are you a bodybuilder or something? And then he says, yeah, I'm a bodybuilder. I take all the bodies apart and I put them back together again. Like, and I was like, dude, that's such a good line.
Yeah, that is like action hero movie level of line. That's pretty good. That's
But the
good
way
writing.
he says it like he's not even looking. He's just walking. He's like, he's like a fly at this point. He's
Nonchalant,
and he's just like, he's looking at all directions. Like he's just distracted.
Very well
like
acted from Goldblum
so good.
in that movie.
So good. But those are my two honorables.
And that kind of leads into our next topic, specifically with the Fly. He's quite a monster. But Blanca is kind of a monster.
He is.
Unless
He's also the reason I ever got into Street Fighter.
Unless you want to go the whole Street Fighter the movie lore, where he's actually Charlie Nash, and he's a science experiment, which I could have done that earlier in retrospect. But Blanca's kind of a monster, river monster. So what's your favorite monster movie?
You know, I had a tough time with this question because I listed a few.
Yeah.
Because monsters aren't really my go-to. I mean, honestly,
That's fair.
In retrospect,
there's some genres that a lot of people kind of lean towards, and there's not often a lot of human drama in monster movies.
Now, I'm gonna actually just pick one of mine. It might be my mention, but the classic, the 1942 Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
I think really at the heart, that is my favorite. I've always loved werewolves because I feel like werewolves kind of go into that sort of that Jekyll and Hyde, sort of that Hulk
because they have to live
duality.
with their humanity and then have that transition.
They do, yeah, and it's like, and it's always that like it's that monster within. It's always that literal monster coming out kind of thing, but then dealing with the very real consequences of living with this darkness, and it can be anything as like, rage issues or love issues or loveless issues, things like that. And the original Wolfman was actually written as an allegory for the Holocaust. And because
I didn't know that.
the writer of the screenplay was a Holocaust survivor. He fled Europe and came to America. And I mean, and when so the idea is that, you would be marked. So in the Universal Wolfman, you are marked with a 5-point star. So the symbol that you wear being a werewolf is a star. It's a 5-point, not a 6-point. But historically in Nazi Germany, it was a 6-point star if you were Jewish. So that was very overt. And when you hear that, it's like, oh yeah, duh. And so then as a Wolfman, he is branded with the star. And now that the star is visible, he's being hunted, and his life, so there is the allegory right there. So it holds this. I mean, it's not scary anymore. Right. When you watch it now, I mean, it's a classic black and white horror movie. But I think Lon Chaney Jr., like he really toes the line of like, he's this happy-go-lucky, aristocrat, coming home for, to see his family up front. And then, and it's a very old style of acting. It's not really like the Elia Kazan,
He's not
Marlon
a method
Brando
actor here.
And it wasn't the method, it was very much like a studio picture acting of the early 40s. But you watch it and it's like, man, I do feel that you are feeling this. I do feel that. And I just think like in that duality of man that we were talking about, a duality of humanity, the Wolfman just gets it. He just gets it.
All right. Well, my answer for this brings us to our second bacon of the night.
Our second helping of bacon.
Our second serving right at you. I fucking love Tremors. That movie is so much fun. Tremors is so good.
It even has the grandpa from Three Ninjas. He gets pulled into the ground, man. And he's also in another John Carpenter, Kurt Russell movie, Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble in Little China is a legitimately good movie. It's not a horror movie. That's some good ass fun. That's some very good Kurt Russell, because he's like supposedly the hero of that movie, but he is not the hero of that movie.
No. Oh no, he's not.
He's just an unfortunate buffoon that happens to have a skill. But anyway, no, Tremors. I love Tremors. It's such a good script. The way that things are revealed, almost everything. There's a Chekhov's gun for everything. Like earlier, they just set up the world because it's a small world. They're out in the fucking desert, and It's like a town of population, what I think the sign says it's like population 10 or something like that.
Something like that. It's just it's a general store and a couple of campers.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it. So everybody knows each other, and it just so happens that a monster comes upon, or monsters come upon them in a way that, like, the way that every part about the Tremors is revealed, of like how they navigate and they are attracted to vibrations. There's that great scene where they finally realize, and they're in the general store, like, nobody move, like, they're attracted to vibrations, and everyone's quiet, and then you hear it's the little girl on the pogo stick out the window, and they're like, we gotta run and save that girl now. But the pogo stick is set up earlier in the shop. The refrigerator, like, is on the fritz and shaking is set up earlier. There's even some really beautiful shots, like early on, where the two of the guys, Kevin Bacon and what's his face from The Walking Dead,
yeah, I know you're talking about
Fred Ward. Regardless, they're out investigating where the Tremors had just been, because they're just out there checking on these people who hadn't got in touch, because it's a small town. And like, as they're walking through the scene, they're like kicking over buckets and like making vibrations and noise that like would technically put them in danger, but they don't know yet. It's just these nice little touches that when you go back and look at it, you go, oh yeah, like, it's just every part of the scene makes sense with the story. And it has one scene that I think is bad cinematography, and it's that one shot of the green screen. But they do the thing in action, or like in monster movies and in horror movies, that like typically doesn't work, and they totally spin it on their head. In that, you know, that moment in the horror movie where the guy's like, I'm just gonna grab this gun and I'm gonna fight the thing, and then the monster just kills him, because it's like, the monster is unstoppable.
Yeah.
But in Tremors, it bursts through the basement wall of these two preppers, basically. What amounts to preppers today, but like back in the 90s, burst through their wall, and they just start shooting. They have all these guns and ammunition, and they're shooting at it with these two guns that they have, and there's a slow reveal. The camera pulls back, and it's just an entire wall of guns. that Tremor walked into the wrong basement, because it's just going to get shot up with literally all the guns.
Right.
And there's a perfect scene there too. There's a perfect shot where he's shooting the gun and he runs out of ammo, so he throws it on the ground. Camera pans down to the gun, and then it transitions, same shot, it turns into a miniature gun. There's a little miniature bullet on the ground, and then it pans over to the puppet Tremor. So it all looks like this one fluid, nice shot that really brings you into it. It's like, it's this little tricks of cinematography to make you feel like this big hunking thing is in that basement when it just wasn't.
Right.
It's such a good...
Tremors is good. Tremors is good. It's under, like, as a series, I feel like the sequels kind of...
they're bad. Don't watch Tremors. Don't watch the sequels.
Any of them. Just Tremors 1. Although good on Michael Gross for like really riding it out. Like,
that's true.
I mean, after, because like after Family Ties, it's like, man, you got to do something, right? So just go from Family Ties to Tremors. I think there's even a Tremors movie like this year, and he's in it. So good on him.
Fucking way. I don't even want to think about that.
But Tremors 1, Tremors with Kevin Bacon and Reba McEntire, and I mean, probably the only time I'd ever be like, yeah, Reba was really good,
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a fun movie. It's our second Bacon in the night, so go ahead and watch that. My honorable mention here, which like I know is a bad movie, but I like it.
It's not terrible. It's not terrible.
I like Cloverfield. I
like Cloverfield, man. Like it. Just like it. Just do you.
Yeah,
it has some things about it.
I love Cloverfield Lane. 10 Cloverfield Lane is actually a legitimately good movie.
Which I have not seen, but I've seen Cloverfield.
Have you not? It's very, very good John Goodman.
Okay.
He is incredible in that movie. I don't know if it's necessarily a horror movie. It is definitely a tense movie. Go watch 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Okay.
And then go watch Cloverfield Paradox and be like,
the hell was this?
That's not even like funny bad.
Right.
It might be funny bad, but it's not quite there. They tried too hard. It's not a good movie. But that's my honorable mentions. The first Cloverfield, I would say.
I'm down with it. And wasn't T.J. Miller in that? I feel like he was the camera guy or something like that. I can't remember.
That might be true.
I don't remember Cloverfield. It's been like 11 years since I've seen that movie.
I liked how grounded it felt. It was those things that like they set it up at a party and they're taping and they're showing like they're taping over something that is later revealed to be important to the character who like is supposed to matter at the end of the movie. And I don't know, just the way that you see those interactions between people before like things actually go bad. It's like, oh man, I believe this world. I don't necessarily know if I care about these people, but I feel like they're real. I don't know if I like them, but I feel like they exist in the world that I exist in.
Yeah, and it's
you
like
see the Statue of Liberty head roll by, and you go, "Oh, things are bad."
Right. And I feel like as long as they don't have to be likable, but I think there's plenty of properties out there where which prove the characters don't have to be likable, but as long as they feel real, that you can enjoy watching them.
Right.
The stakes that they're in. I think. On the comedic side, like, Seinfeld and It's Always Sunny, it's like two massively popular shows where the characters are not likable whatsoever.
None of the characters in It's Always Sunny are redeemable whatsoever.
But I like watching their antics because they don't feel realistic. But it was sort of the thing that we were talking about before, that they're not realistic, but they do feel true. Yeah. I feel that with Cloverfield. I get that with Cloverfield.
Anyway, that's my honorable mention.
Well, my honorable, I'm not going to dwell on them, but original King Kong, 1933, love it. Godzilla, 1954, love it. The one I would talk about is American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Because it's another werewolf movie, but I mean, just for nothing else, everyone always talks about the werewolf effects and they're just right. I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's just see it for that transformation, and see it for how fun it is too. It's another one where it's like, this might be a werewolf. It might be exactly what it looks like, or it might be just a guy who maybe got a little traumatized, or maybe he's crazy and killed his best friend and is killing people. And that last shot was
best friend has some of the most fun on screen in that movie.
Oh, I know. Griffin
Anytime
Dunn.
he appears, it's like, oh boy, I bet he was having a good day on set.
Right, I know, and it's like even when he gets like he's just super slathered in prosthetics and blood, and it's just Griffin Dunn is the actor. He was just having a good time. You
just
can tell.
chewing up the scenery and delivering his lines with the perfect delivery.
Perfect. And then David Naughton as the lead. I mean, he does well too. He's doing really well as like this very confused. I mean, he's a fish. It's a fish out of water twice over. He's just an American in London. Doesn't really know where he is. He's in this new relationship. He's just kind of holing up in her apartment, and he might be a werewolf, or he might be an insane person cutting people up, maybe with his own teeth. But then there's also this, and it's by John Landis, who did up to that time he did Blues Brothers, he did Animal House. So that's a comedy guy, and there are these moments of actual genuine comedy. Yeah. My favorite bit, and this will be the last I say on it, is it's toward the end, where he's toward the final transformation and he's in a porno theater. He's just hiding out in a porno theater. And that's just the setting. So it's like, okay, it's kind of awkward because he's in there with all these like perverts and some of them are masturbating or whatever. But like he's having a final talk with his dead friend, the one you mentioned with Griffin Dunn, but he's finally fully decomposed. And, they're having this final talk. And then it interrupts with a scene from the porno that they're watching, which is not a real porn. And it's like these two people are having sex, and then this other guy walks in and says, what are you doing with him? It's something like, what are you doing with him?
Like
it's
the
like, I'm your
line feeds
boyfriend.
into what they're talking about.
Kind of. And then the girl in the movie that they're watching turns and says, "What? No, I'm not her. I've never seen you before in my life." And then he goes, oh, my mistake, and then walks out, and then the two of them just commence having sex. And it reminds me of like the most amateur improv you've ever seen. like two high schoolers who are doing improv for the first time ever. It's so funny. It's weird and out of place, but at the same time, it's like they're in a porno theater, so I assume I would see a little bit of.
It reminds me of like that scene from The Big Lebowski where he puts on log jamming.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Never imagine you can imagine what happens next.
Yeah. So those are my honorables. I love
those. Those are good answers. All right. And now for our last segment, the last one I could come up with. Street Fighter has many world warriors. It is a global event. So what is your favorite foreign horror movie?
All right. We're there now.
Oh, fuck.
Takashi Miike's Audition. I love Audition.
If you have not seen this movie, go watch it now before we talk about it. I will say that about this movie.
It is a mind fuck. It's a butt fuck. It's a belly fuck. It's a whole body fuck. It is.
This one gets me in the guts.
This is the one we were talking about, alluding to earlier about gear shifts. This is the biggest gear shift in any movie ever. It starts off, I want to say, it's a very rom-com premise at top. It's this guy. So it's about this movie producer. He's a filmmaker. And his wife had died years ago, and his son encourages him to say, hey, it's about time you start dating again, Dad. So he's like, well, and then his colleague gives him the idea. He's like, well, why don't we audition for this movie? And while we're auditioning for these, the actress for this movie that may or may not actually exist, you could just screen them as potential mates. Kind of creepy, but it's done in like this rom-com, in like 90s rom-com.
Yeah, but also it's like Japan at that time.
Japan, right? 90s, late 90s. It's like 99 or whatever. And, there's a lot of goofs, a lot of little gags about him. And and even he feels weird about it. He's like, I don't know. That's a little unethical, but well, I don't know, but maybe just go with it. Okay, we'll see what happens. And then he chooses a woman, and she turns out to be the most insane person in probably Japanese history. And so we go from this very like rom-com-y premise to all of a sudden like the image of like of her like barfing in a dog bowl.
That is the turn, dude. Oh. Fucking
she puts two fingers in her mouth, throws up in a dog bowl, and then puts it down. And
no. Let's set up this scene, because that's not the whole scene, my guy. Okay. That's not where it starts. Okay.
Go for it. I want to. Yeah. What's the part that hits you?
They set this up right in a couple different ways. This particular scene. This scene pays off so well. This is why it is so effective. And then to have that cream on top, that literal cream on top, saying that word cream on top out of my mouth literally made my gut churn a little bit just thinking about what happens here. So they set it up earlier in the phone call, right?
Yeah.
All she has in her room, in this very sparse room, is a telephone and a burlap sack.
Yep, that's it.
That's it. All you see is the sack at that time, and you're like, well, that's odd. That's strange. And then later on in the movie, while he's the main character is going through and talking to her references, right, on the list on her like resume basically, and these people either like don't exist or died.
Right.
And I think it's the bartender who he's like, oh yeah, he's like, we found was like a tongue, an ear, and like 2 feet or something. Like that's all we have left of this person.
But it was something like but there was like 12 fingers.
Yeah, there was more fingers than like. I don't know. There's too many fingers. There was too many tongues here, which that's a weird thing to say.
Right.
Where did this tongue come from? Why is there so much blood? Why is there so much blood?
Why? Where? How?
But then you have those setups, and then the payoff is that, as it turns out, inside of this burlap sack is that guy who comes out and is like begging for food. He's starving. He has like one finger, can't speak because he doesn't have a tongue, like doesn't have feet, so he can't crawl. He has these stumps. He's horrifying. And then she does that.
Yeah. Then she sticks 2 fingers in her mouth, throws up in a dog bowl, gives it down, and here's the thing: there's no protest. He laps it up.
He does not wait 1 second.
He laps it up hungrily. Hungrily swallows her vomit. It's so disgusting. It is just like a punch, a full body punch.
That's the turn.
Yeah.
That's the turn right there.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about with the gear shift.
Oh man. And then again, this is not the only movie we're going to be talking about that had eye stabbings. Because this movie goes there as well, where he's laying there paralyzed and she comes up with the little needles.
Yep.
And is like laughing as she's doing it. I do appreciate that they don't show her actually do it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But what they do show, the part that actually gets me, is it's like piano wire or something like that, and wraps it around his ankles, just like loops it and just starts like sawing, like tightening it. It's a gnarly movie, and like
That's a gnarly
just
scene.
Oh, and just like the sawing sound through the bone. It's a trip,
because it sits on that. It presents itself almost as like revenge torture porn,
right?
But it
Almost.
really isn't that though. Like there's elements of this movie that don't necessarily make it revenge, because like he didn't really do anything wrong to deserve it, but also he was auditioning for women to play the part of his wife. So is it like misogynist in some way? Like he doesn't necessarily give enough or play it that far, but also like she wasn't really hurt that much to necessitate stabbing him in the eyeballs and cutting off his legs. Like the actions here are, it's somewhere in between. It is very confusing. It is very disturbing. I hate this movie. I love it.
That's exactly how I feel about it. It's like, oh man, I hate what I'm seeing, but oh man, I gotta see this again.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Very good movie.
Yeah,
same production company as the people who did Ring, which was like the first, before what The Ring was based off of. Right.
And yeah, never mind. I had no further question about that. Yes, The Ring, the original Japanese Ring.
Right. No, super good movie. I highly recommend checking it out. My pick for foreign film is 1977's Hausu.
Hausu, which I've seen once. It's been years, but I've seen it.
Oh man, what a trip. Hausu is so good. It is, because it lets you know immediately what you are watching. Like right off the bat, you go, oh, this is unlike anything I've ever seen before at all. The best way I can describe it is basically like, it's basically an anime that's live action that is a house eating people.
Yeah. I remember the piano. I remember the head coming out of the well and biting the girl's butt.
That's the turn of this movie. That's when things like actually turn into, okay, this is a horror movie. I knew that this was a different movie, but I didn't know it was a horror movie until they pull the head out of the well and the head corporate like floats through the air and bites her butt. Like imagining like
a school game.
Yeah. And it's like every kill in this movie and every bit of it is presented in like a goof, in like a fun way, but is also like, oh man, like this is what I am watching is like kind of fucked up. But it's 1977 and the editing that they're doing here is buck wild. Because it's also like super obvious with its horror, like, or with its like horror tropes at least, because none of the characters have real names. It's like Gorgeous, who's the pretty one, Fantasy, who fantasizes and sees things.
Oh, that's right.
who's the fat one who's just like food. She might as well be called food. One I think is called just karate because she can do karate. It's Sweet, who's just the nice Mac. It's Mac and Kung Fu. Kung Fu does Kung Fu. Melody, because she plays music. And it's like, these are their introductions. And like, what I've read about this movie and how it was basically pitched is that the dude who did the screenplay was taking ideas actually from his daughter, in that the things that she would tell him was like things that he couldn't imagine. It's things that are beyond your imagination that you have no understanding of and don't actually make sense like within the physical world because they're not constrained to ideas that like we have locked in ourselves. And then he kind of took that idea and extrapolated that to kind of the horrors of World War II, where just out of nowhere, no one like realized like how or why, but they dropped 2 bombs on Japan and a whole bunch of people died. And like the reeling from that of like not knowing like where this horror came from or what the fuck even happened. And like that was the sense that he was trying to get across through this film. And holy fucking shit, do they do that? And that's kind of alluded to in the scene that I actually think is super good. And like, you know what kind of movie you're watching, is that it's set up that they're going to go to, the Gorgeous and the team are going to go to some house like owned by her father. But then her father is like, oh, but I have brought this person back from the place. This is your new mom now. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to my aunt's house. And then so her and the girl gang go to the aunt's house instead. And on their bus trip to the aunt's house, they like watch a film, but they like talk, like all of the actors basically talk over that film and describe it, but not in like the way that would seem like it's written in a script. It's basically as if they were like, hey, like here's what's happening. Can you just like one of you say one of these things? Just say that like he went off to war. Just say that. And then they're like laughing about it as it's happening. Like, and then the end of the reel, it shows the nuclear bombs going off. And you're like, hey, wait a minute, what the fuck? And then before you could even like realize what happened, like the film burns and then boop, like we're in the place now. Like we've just teleported from a train to now we're on a bus and now we're on the place now. It's just the way that it moves is just insane. It's just full of insanity. Oh man, this movie is unlike any other film that has been made. I don't know. And it's not like the special effects are even that good. Like they're kind of super bad. It's terrible.
Yeah, even for the 70s.
Yeah,
even for the 70s, I remember.
Oh man, what a trip. Very good soundtrack. It had the first like meme cat.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Because they have it has like a theme song to it, the doom 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 or something like that. But then at one point there's the cat and the cat meow. They like pitch shift it to the meow 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 meow, and it's walking across a piano back and forth, and it's like meme culture would have loved this movie if
it only had existed 40 years ago.
Man, it is a fucking trip.
I remember it being a trip.
Highly recommend it. And like it's it's not even something that like I would recommend. Even like I'm not even jokingly saying, hey, do some drugs and watch this crazy movie. It's like, no, just watch it sober. You'll be like fucked up after watching it. Of like, what the hell did I even just? Was that girl in a clock? Did she get eaten by the piano? How did? Okay, just. If you don't know what this movie is about, watch the scene where the girl gets eaten by the piano, and then you will know exactly what this movie is about. Yeah,
I feel like even if you don't know what you're getting into, it's still enjoyable.
Oh yeah,
like 100%. There's definitely like a nice little like get yourself ready. It's cool, but yeah, there's so many surprises. That's what I remember. Even though I'm a little fuzzy because it's been like 8 years since I've seen the movie, but it's I just remember being so surprised by the visuals that I was like, My friend who showed it to me, Patrick, he insisted. He was like, "If you don't know anything about it, I don't want you to know anything about it. Let's just watch it." And I was like, "Okay." And I loved it. I remember loving it, having such a good time.
Because the other crazy thing is that even though the effects are kind of bad, there's still like gorgeous matte paintings. The backgrounds and like the sets are like a fantasy world. It's like a dream that you walk into. Like every shot is so dreamlike of like, how did they get from there to there? Or like that matte painting is gorgeous, but the scaling looks weird, but that's probably intentional. And then there was a bit of editing in that shot that's like just a little bit off, that isn't in a way that makes it feel human at all. It's so good. So good. Highly recommend it.
Very much so.
But
I'm glad both our picks were Japanese too.
Japan does good with horror. Like
they do.
These two were not the only two good Japanese horror movies that are out there. There's a bunch. Go watch them. But my honorable mention here is Michelle Haneke's Funny Games, which actually got an English adaptation, also directed and filmed by Michelle Haneke, and it's shot for shot the exact same movie. This movie hates you. You will watch it. You will hate it. It's a bad movie, but also that's why it's a good horror movie.
So where's what country was it from?
It's Austrian.
Oh, it's Austrian. Okay.
It's originally an Austrian film, originally filmed there. And then he was like, I want this movie to hurt more people. I will film it in English.
I would like to weaponize it. I would like to send it to the West.
Legitimately. This movie, in my opinion, is the director deliberately being like, okay, what are the things that people who watch movies and like, what are the things that are gratifying, and just strip all of those away, show you terrible things. And the moment when you think you get gratification is then stricken from you again. And then like a big fuck you. And he's just like, haha, horror. Welcome to Austria.
Welcome to Austrian horror.
It's the reason why it can't be my favorite is because it's like not a good movie. Like you watch it and you just feel bad. You're supposed to feel bad.
I have to see this movie. I do now.
I recommend it. You'll like it. No, you'll hate it. I'll hate it, but then you'll be like, why do I hate this movie? Like, why would Joe tell me to watch this?
Why would you do this?
This seems like a bad idea. All right, folks, but that will do it. That's a show. We somehow forced Street Fighter.
Forced the conversation about Street Fighter and
just to talk about horror movies because I don't really get that many. Personally, I don't get that many opportunities to talk about horror movies or to horror culture at all. I'm sure you do, working at the haunted house, at the haunt, working the haunts.
We work haunts out here, Joe.
The haunts he's. I've read his guide. But
that's your haunted houses are for carnivals and kids.
But before you go, I have to ask you the two questions that I ask everyone who is on this show. So I can't let you leave without doing that. And then we'll wrap up real quick. It's a line of two questions. Tells a lot about a person. What is your favorite normal attack in any fighting game?
Okay. My favorite normal attack is Sasquatch in Darkstalker's Standing Light Punch. He just flicks you.
Nice.
He just flicks. And isn't that such a high tier thing to do? He's just like, especially in Vampire Savior, he's so good in that game, and he's just like, I can't be bothered. Just flick.
Just doing something that is like, this takes no effort, but will deal damage to you.
But it'll reach, and it'll do damage, and it'll open up for a full damage chain combo and OTG.
Very good. And then speaking of which, you kind of led into it, but with that line of thought, what is your favorite combo in any fighting game?
I mean, I would say almost like the follow-up, but combo, good question. What's yours?
Mine, for example,
I can ruminate.
No, that's fine. I like to do that. My answer is Sagat's Street Fighter 4 forward light kick into crouching light punch into DP, and variations thereof, specifically because of that 3-hit chain, because you do the forward light kick, but then it's a long time before you hit that crouching light punch. And there's something about that cadence of bump, bop, bop. Like, because you have to cancel that light punch immediately. So it's like you delay, ta-ta. There's something musical about it to me that I love so much. And also it's Sagat, so it looks violent, and it just deals damage, and it's this low that hits from super far away. And that's why I like that combo. And he has variations of that as well. Like, you can cancel the crouching light punch into an EX DP, which then you can link into Ultra, which is like, that's a super fun combo. I don't know, it just leads to a bunch of fun stuff.
Okay, then I have an answer. Okay. I have an answer. I love, it's very short. It's a very short one, but I mean, you could always tack on. It's Geef's light B&Bs into the green hand, like like you can like jump in, or if you can just buffer a green hand into a standing short, just play that footsies game. But really, it was an Ultra where the combo comes in, again, very short combo, nothing fancy to it. You could the EX green hand forced a stand from a crouching opponent. That was on the 1.04 patch back in like December, November 2014. So like, you could, if you buffered the Z motion or just like the down forward down motion, got ready an EX green hand, on reaction, go through fireballs into a red focus, automatic red focus. It didn't whiff after that patch. Force a stand into either a free Ultra or another command grab or a reset. You could do the rolling suplex into a setup, and it was just it was wonderful. Yeah. I got so much mileage out of that.
I'm in so much agreement with you on that one, because a fully loaded Geef, that basically prevented your opponent from throwing any kind of projectile.
Yeah.
Or even like trying to play footsies, because that stand light kick could just be there at any moment.
Yeah.
And then EX green hand red focus, boom, and it's like more than half your health.
Right. With a setup. You could go for
a
hard heavy pile driver for damage, or you could just do a rolling suplex for meter or setup. It was insane.
Yeah, you do the suplex, and then that ambiguous, you could do short jump or normal jump over their head, and then like sometimes I don't even know what side I'm going to land on. I do if you use the short jump.
But then it's like, I know if it's like the short jump, it's like in front. But know what? If you go low after that short jump, it's like, it doesn't matter if you didn't know, because now they don't know either.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's because, it was so much less. It was like that EX green hand into red focus was basically the jump scare of fighting games, because it comes out of nowhere, you don't expect it, and then you die.
Right.
It's terrifying.
And then like you can, and especially if you had Ultra 2, you had the Siberian Blizzard loaded up, you just knew they wouldn't want to jump, or they just wouldn't want to jump or backdash after that. So you just kept that threat. There was just that viable threat of, he's baiting out a jump. Oh shit. He got me with a rolling suplex. He's doing a setup. He's going to go low, and he wants me to think he's grabbing. So I'm going to jump, but no, I'm not going to jump because he has the Siberian Blizzard. So I just grab him.
That was a fun mix up. I like it.
Fun mix up. Love that mix up.
All right, man. So thank you. Thank you for taking your time to talk to me about horror movies on this Street Fighter related podcast.
Dude, anytime.
I am super grateful that you would take the time to do so. In this like long 2-parter, again, tons of time out of your day for doing that, but I had so much fun. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Before you go, though, let people know where they can find you.
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Dr. Stantz _. That's DOCTORSTANTZ _ on Twitch at twitch.tv/Dr. Stantz, or on Instagram at Paul _ Meyd, PAUL _ MEYD.
All right, folks. And again, you can find me at Super Joe Monday on twitter.com or at Reddit SF if you want to talk to the show directly. We are here every Thursday, but don't forget about the tournaments Mondays and Friday nights. But that's a show, folks. That's a very spooky show. Until next time, maybe I'll be a little bit more brave. But take care.